Dear learners, I would like to welcome you all to this lecture on agricultural price policy. This lecture is basically a part of the course which we have offered on agricultural economics. At first, to explain what is agricultural price policy. Agricultural price policy is one of the important aspects of agricultural economics. Why? Because agricultural economics is an applied field of economics which deals with principles that help the farmers in the efficient use of scarce resources and as well as getting remunerative prices in farming and allied activity. Agricultural economics can also be defined that it is the principles and method of economics that are applied for special conditions of agricultural industry. Now, before explaining what agricultural price policy or its structure components, it is necessary to discuss the background of agricultural price policy. So basically there are three factors, or there are three issues, or you can say importance of agricultural price policy can be explained on the basis of three issues. The first and the foremost is the farmers' income. Now, importance of agricultural price policy lies in the fact that a proper implementation of agricultural price policy or proper formulation and implementation of agricultural price policy ensures remunerative prices to the products, and that will increase the farmers' income. Now, why farmers' income is very important? Because until and unless farmers earn remunerative prices for their product, they cannot do further investment in agriculture, because otherwise there is no capital accumulation in agriculture. So that is why for sustenance and for sustainability of agricultural activity, it is necessary that agricultural price policy should be properly framed. The second, the most important issue or importance of agricultural price policy is properly designed agricultural price policy ensure food security. Now, in a market economy where profit motive plays an important role for undertaking any kind of production, sometimes it happens that we ignore the issue of food security. But most of the developing country, or in a countries having huge number of population like India, food security is a major issue. Now, in case of food security, basically we are concerned about two things. One, availability of food, and second one is accessibility of food. The availability of food security is basically ensured by agricultural price policy, because until and unless farmers are not getting remunerative prices for their product, they will not involve in agricultural activity, and that may create a scarcity of food. So that is why it is very important to have proper agricultural price policy. The third most important issue related to agricultural price policy is rural development. Now, as a process of economic development, people starts migrating from rural to urban areas, but still a huge population, particularly in a developing country like India, live in rural areas. The rural development is basically depends on agricultural activities, because most of the people in rural areas, they are basically involved in agricultural sector. Now, development of agriculture will ultimately increase the income of the people involved in agriculture, and ultimately it will result in rural development, and ultimately it helps to increase the standard of living of the people, particularly the farmers in the rural area. So that is why it is very necessary to ensure fair returns to the farmers who basically live in rural areas for their produce. And at the same time, it is very important that we should have a stable prices that will encourage investment in agriculture and ensure a consistent food supply to consumers, so that there is no scarcity of food. So, against this background, in this lecture, basically we will concentrate on these issues: importance of agricultural price policy, which I have already explained, then factors influencing agricultural prices, objectives of agricultural price policy, component of agricultural price policy, challenges in agricultural price policy, and strategies for effective agricultural price policy. Now, how can we define agricultural price policy? Agricultural price policy is basically required for ensuring stability and prosperity in the agricultural sector. So, importance of agricultural price policy is basically explained in terms of increase in farmers' income, in terms of ensuring food security, and increase rural development in terms of higher income to the rural people, so that they can improve their standard of living. Next, we will discuss what are the factors that affect agricultural prices. The first and the most important factor is demand and supply dynamics. So in economics, when we are talking about price is basically decided by two factors. One is demand and another is supply. Now, the rule of equilibrium is that the price is in equilibrium when demand is equal to supply. So in case of agricultural commodities, also the same rule applies. When there is a increase in demand as compared to supply, there is an increase in price of agricultural goods, and if there is an increase in supply as compared to demand, there is a fall in price of agricultural goods. So that is why these two forces, that is demand and supply, ultimately decide the price of agricultural goods. So that is why demand and supply dynamics is considered as one of the important factors which determine agricultural prices. Next factor which we will discuss is basically weather and climate. A bad monsoon or bad weather or a climatic condition affect the agricultural prices, particularly it can hamper the supply of agricultural goods. As we know, a good monsoon always result good production in agricultural goods. So that is why weather and climate is considered as one of the important factors which determine the agricultural prices. Next, government policies and intervention. In a developing country, for example India, government has a big role to play in deciding agricultural prices. When there is sudden fall in agricultural prices, then it will affect the supply side, that is basically the farmers. And when there is a sudden rise in agricultural prices, it will affect the consumers, and it can also create problem in terms of scarcity of food, and in terms it will lead to food insecurity. So that is why proper government policy and interventions are required for having a stable agricultural price. And the last but not the least, another important factor which determines agricultural price is the global market trend. Usually what happens in international trade, in most of the cases for agricultural commodities, we have a very unfavorable terms of trade. But instead, still, on a relative basis, the global market trend is an important factor to be considered for determining the agricultural prices. Next, we will discuss the objectives of agricultural price policy. The first objective is to stabilize prices to protect farmers and consumers from extreme fluctuation. Now, extreme fluctuation in agricultural prices of agricultural commodities will affect not only the farmers, it will also affect the consumers. For example, in case of India, although as the percentage of people or the percentage of contribution by agricultural sector to the national income has declined, but still the percentage of people involved in agriculture is quite huge still in India. So that is why agriculture is the source of livelihood for a major section of people in India, and that to apply in other developing countries also. So that is why a stable and remunerative prices for agricultural commodities is very necessary to protect the farmers and consumers from extreme fluctuation. The second most important objectives of agricultural price policy that it ensures fair and remunerative prices to the farmers, as I have already explained. Next important objectives of agricultural price policy is to increase agricultural production and productivity, and as well as investment in agriculture. Until and unless farmers getting remunerative prices for their product, they hardly have any savings. So without saving, there is no investment. So that is why for sustainability of agriculture, for growth of agriculture, for ensuring food security, it is necessary that we should encourage agricultural production and productivity. So that is why to encouraging agricultural production and productivity is considered to be one of the important objectives of agricultural price policy. Another important objectives of agricultural price policy, it ensures food security and mitigate rural poverty, which I have already explained. To control insistent fluctuation in prices of agricultural food grains is considered to be one of the important objectives of agricultural price policy, because otherwise it will hamper the country's terms of trade. The objectives of agricultural price policy can also be explained by the fact that proper agricultural price policy protect the interest of the farmers by providing or encouraging them to invest more in agricultural production. Now, another important objectives of agricultural price policy that it provides facilities for processing, marketing, storage and irrigation of agricultural product for all-round development of agricultural sector. Last but not the least, to ensure stable relationship between prices of agricultural product, manufactured goods and prices of food grains and non-food grains are also considered to be one of the important objectives of agricultural price policy. Sometimes, along with the agricultural price policy, it is necessary to discuss the component of agricultural price policy. So what are the basic component of agricultural price policy? So what are the issues we should discuss while discussing agricultural price policy? The most important one is minimum support price. Now what is minimum support price? Minimum support price is a floor price set by the government to safeguard farmers' income. The second most important component is price stabilization mechanism, which is basically ensured by buffer stock, future market and trade policies to manage price volatility. The third most important component of agricultural price policy is direct income support, that is cash transfer or subsidies to farmers to stabilize income. So we will discuss one by one. Now what is minimum support price? The minimum support price is a key agricultural policy tool used by the government to ensure that farmers receive a minimum price for their produce. So ultimately, it ensures or it serves as a safety net for farmers, guaranteeing them a fair and remunerative price for their crops irrespective of market condition. Now, we are in a position to define what is the primary purpose of minimum support price. The primary purpose of minimum support price is to protect the farmers from price fluctuation and market uncertainties, thereby providing them with price stability and income security. By ensuring farmers of a minimum price, MSP, that is minimum support price, encourages agricultural production as well as investment which contribute to food security and rural livelihood. Now, thus MSP is typically set by the government based on various factors such as production cost, supply, demand dynamics, market trend, and the need to provide adequate return to farmers. So that is why government agencies, they often conduct surveys and consultation with the stakeholders to determine MSP for different crops. Now, what is the impact of MSP? How MSP help the farmers? So basically, MSP ensure income security because it ensures that farmers receive a fair price for their produce, thereby enhancing their income and economic well-being. MSP also helps to stabilize agricultural prices by providing a floor price, mitigating the adverse effect of market fluctuation on farmers' income. MSP also provide production incentive to farmers to increase production of MSP supported crops, so leading to a enhanced agricultural productivity and food availability. So MSP is also related to rural development. How? Because by supporting farmers' income, MSP contributes to rural development, poverty reduction, and overall economic development in rural area. Now, what is the process of implementation of MSP? How government implement MSP? Government basically what they do, government agencies, they procure crops from farmers at minimum support price through designated procurement center or agencies. So these procured crops are then utilized for various purposes including distribution through public distribution system, buffer stocking to maintain the food security and welfare scheme. Now, the second most important component of price stabilization mechanism is the maintenance of buffer stock. Now, what is buffer stock? Buffer stock basically refers to the quantity of commodity that is held in reserve to stabilize prices and supply in the market. It serves as a mechanism to mitigate the impact of fluctuation in demand and supply, particularly in agricultural market where production can be affected by factors such as weather condition, pest, and diseases. So what are the key features of buffer stock? Basically, it stabilizes prices. It ensures supply security. How buffer stock ensures supply security? Because buffer stock help to ensure a consistent supply of essential commodities, particularly during the shortages and emergencies. By holding surplus stocks during the period of abundance, buffer stocks can be released into the market during times of scarcity to meet demand and prevent price spikes. Buffer stocks also helps market regulation because it plays a regulatory role in stabilizing market and preventing extreme price fluctuation. By adjusting the quantity of stock released into the market, authorities can moderate price movement and prevent market distortion with the help of buffer stock. It also supports the farmers because buffer stock provide a safety net for farmers by guaranteeing them a minimum price for their produce. By producing surplus crops during bumper harvest, buffer stock agencies help in stabilizing farm income and encourages agricultural production. So that is why a buffer stock is considered to be one of the second important component while explaining agricultural price policy. So examples of buffer stock operations are food grains, industrial commodities, storage and handling costs, market distortion. These are basically examples of buffer stock. The third most important component of agricultural price policy is to cash transfer or providing subsidies to the farmers to stabilize their income. So this is basically it's a part of government intervention so that it ensures stability in farmers' income. So next we will discuss the challenges of agricultural price policies. The first challenge of agricultural price policy is the market distortion. So how to prevent market distortion? So government can use different instruments such as subsidy, tariff and trade barrier and control those instruments so that it cannot distort the price signals. So that is why government intervention in terms of proper subsidies, in terms of proper tariff and trade barriers is necessary to restrict the market distortion so that proper agricultural price policy can be framed. Another challenge of agricultural price policy or agricultural commodities is the price volatility. So this is basically happen because most of the agricultural goods are perishable goods. So but in a poor country like India, where we have a limited scope for storage, so what happened during the harvesting seasons, there is an excessive supply of agricultural goods, and as a result, what happened? The price falls suddenly, and as a result, it happens that sometimes the farmers are not able to even cover the cost of production in agriculture. So that is why price volatility is a very challenging task in case of agricultural commodities. Until and unless the administration ensure proper storage facility, until and unless farmers are educated enough to ensure the proper storage of their commodities, it will affect their income, and ultimately it is considered as a challenge while framing agricultural price policy. Next, inequitable distribution. So it is also considered as a challenge in agricultural price policy because smallholder farmers often lack access to price information and face exploitation by the middlemen. So this is another important issue of agricultural price policy. It happens because usually we have observed that the farmers who produce agricultural goods, in many instances, they are not getting remunerative prices for their product. They are getting very low price for their product, and at the same time, the ultimate consumer, they are also purchasing the agricultural good at a very high price. So ultimately, the most of the profit is basically consumed by the middlemen, and it ultimately results in inequitable distribution. So that is why proper intervention on the part of administration is necessary to restrict inequitable distribution or to restrict exploitation by middlemen to the farmers. Now, what are the strategies for improving agricultural price policy? The first and foremost importance is to enhance market efficiency by investing in infrastructure, particularly agricultural infrastructure, mechanization of agriculture by injecting good technology in agriculture, and providing proper marketing information or market information to the farmers. Now, second most important strategy for agricultural price policy is to diversify income sources. So, it is necessary to promote crop diversification and value-added product to reduce dependence on a few commodities. So farmers, they should go for diversification of food, but not at the expense of food security. Now, another strategy of improving agricultural price policy is to strengthening the institutional mechanism, that is to improve governance, transparency, and farmer participation in policy making. So these are basically strategies for improving agricultural price policy. So thus, we can conclude that agricultural price policy is essential for ensuring sustainability and prosperity of the agricultural sector, because only properly framed agricultural price can ensure remunerative prices to the farmers. It ensures food security. Properly framed agricultural price policy also ensure overall rural development. Again, we can say that by addressing challenges and implementing effective strategies, we can create a fair and stable environment for farmers and consumers. So, in conclusion, I can say that government has to play a very significant role, particularly in a developing country like India, to have a fair and remunerative price for agricultural commodities. So, thank you for listening to this lecture on agricultural price policy, which is part of our course on agricultural economics. Thank you.